Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Monday morning. Cold and rainy, wet. I think it's 40-something degrees. We got a freeze watch on in the next 24 hours. It's going to be Halloween coming up. Get your candy ready. Kids will be probably coming pretty early. Big football weekend, man. A lot of games to talk about. Mitch Davis is going to join us at MitchDavisShow.com in just a minute. And we're going to be discussing what in the world is happening. All these teams, Southern Cal, North Carolina, they got these high-powered offenses. They don't play defense. A lot of notes to cover today. But look, we do this 25 times a month at least, 300-plus days a year, sidelines.live. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's pretty simple. If you can subscribe, do yourself a favor and do it. You'll get updated every day. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/@sidelines_live. You'll get a notification every morning. You just tap on that, takes you straight to the show. Remember, we're live 8 to 10 a.m. Central, Monday through Saturday. But if you miss us live, you can go and pick us up later wherever you get your podcasts, just like wherever you go to eat, where store you shop at. We're available on basically every social media platform. So easy to find, very easy to find. So make it happen. We do it. We love doing this, but we're talking sidelines, Southern College, sports report, football, basketball, baseball. We get into recruiting. Of course, we do a little pro sports too, because a lot of these guys go back and forth to both leagues. Okay. So let me say some interesting things, some notes that I've got, and Mitch, we'll talk about this. Northwestern is 4-4 after being 1-11 last year. Colorado is also 4-4, but they had the problem. I don't know what hazing is. Is that yelling at a kid, making him, what is hazing? I don't know. Look, when you're a freshman football player, you got to go through hell just like you do in the NFL. I mean, I don't know what happened, but Pat Fitzgerald was the most successful coach in Northwestern history. He's gone. The new guy's there. He was on the staff, but they're 4-4. Who's getting all the attention? Deion Sanders in Colorado, who've now lost 4 of their last 5 games, I might add. Oregon beat Utah 35-6. That rematch with Washington is likely, Mitch. And I'm going to say this right now because I'm already getting it on the comments from people. Mississippi State, why do people, when they become a new head coach, want to be different? You got the air raid for 3 years working. I thought, man, this makes sense. Zach Arnett has been a defensive coordinator with Mike Leach. He knows how to rest his defense and all. They went 9-3 last year. And Randy in Memphis, Zach Arnett should be charged with coaching malpractice. Hey, coach, just want to say go Dogs, and I'll hang up and listen. Mitch, we didn't get to go down there. I'm going to be down there for the New Mexico State and the Alabama game, going up to Nashville for the Auburn Vandy game Saturday. You were there. What'd you think?
Rob, thank you so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it. Sorry I was late. My computer wouldn't load this morning. I don't know. I wrote an article last night, but I guess it's still tired from the trip to Auburn, and so it's just taking a little bit to get loaded. But, Rob, Auburn is a wonderful place. I mean, really, truly, everybody was so kind, so friendly. Obviously, I sat in the press box on Saturday, but I still had a Mississippi State hat on and wore a maroon button down. Friday, went out to eat, walked around Auburn, had a guy offer to buy me a beer. Welcome to Auburn. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. We're so glad you're here.
Yep.
Really quickly, I've been to, 12 out of the 14 SEC schools and have never had that experience as an opposing fan before. It was really, truly fantastic. I mean, everybody was so kind, so hospitable. I mean, really, other than the outcome for Mississippi State, obviously, everything was just the perfect trip. Got a good rate. there in Opelika. Really enjoyed that.
Opelika.
Yeah. So
here's the thing. There's an Opelika, something like that, Florida. That's where that comes from. It's an old Creek Indian name. Pretty cool.
See, and really truthfully, like I was so impressed with being so close to the university and
yeah,
the hotel attendants. They said that they tailgate where the media park. They're like, hey, why don't you stop by our tailgate? So I walked by and said hello, and really just truly was a great, fantastic experience. Got to see my boy Coach Freeze for a little bit, talk to him, kind of catch up with him, and so that was good. We go all the way back to Briarcrest when my grandfather hired him at Briarcrest, and so that was good to see him. As far as Mississippi State goes, I'm at the point, Rob. I was texting some people yesterday. I was like, how in the hell do I even put what I feel, how I view this team in an article? I had to write my takeaways from the game on Saturday last night. Got that out there. Check that out at themitchdavidshow.com. How do you even put into words what is going on with the Mississippi State team? Last week, the defense won the game. Last week, they held Arkansas to 3 points, under 200 yards total offense. This week, they made Peyton Thorne look like a Heisman Trophy contender. I don't get it. I don't understand this Mississippi State team. Yet they still have the entire season in front of them. They got 4 games left. They've got a winnable game against a mediocre Kentucky team on Saturday at home, on Saturday night at Davis-Wade Stadium. I expect that place to be rocking as usual. Then they go on the road to Texas A&M, which is a beatable team. Then they got Southern Miss, which is a pretty much guaranteed win at this point. And then the Ole Miss Rebels in the Egg Bowl, and weird, crazy crap happens in the Egg Bowl. So the path for Mississippi State to get 6 wins is there. But nobody really knows if they're going to be able to put a complete 60-minute game. I mean, they came back against Auburn. They made it competitive. That was brutally bad for Mississippi State on Saturday.
Well, I look at you beat Mississippi State beat Arkansas on the road 7-3, but Arkansas's defense, their offense with Dan Enos, and I thought that was a good hire, but man, I admit it, I blew that one big time because I'd seen him be successful at Arkansas before and at Alabama and other places, but it did not work this time. So beating Arkansas right now is like, beating up a man who's bedridden. I mean, I can't believe what's happened to Arkansas. Their defense is pretty good, but the offense is not good. So I don't know what you take away. I just had such high expectations for Zach Arnett. I love his personality. He's really aggressive. And, Kevin Barbay as offensive coordinator, Mitch, let's talk about that. Does he get invited back to the party next year in Starkville?
So here's the interesting thing, Rob, and I'm probably going to get some hate for this from the Mississippi State people. But, AD Zach Zelman was not in position in December when the decision was made to bring on Arnett to kind of weather the storm. He was not the athletics director. After the season, if Mississippi State does not make the postseason, they don't show any improvement these last 4 games, there's going to be some decisions being made in the athletic department whether or not to keep Zach Arnett on as head coach of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. I like Zach Arnett as a person. I think he's a great person. He's always been very nice to me, very kind, answers all my questions. However, what he did wrong, and I think, after the season, he'll probably admit to this, what he did wrong was get rid of all the staff from last year. He brought in his guys. He brought in his, guys who he trusted. Kevin Barbay has been a disaster. I mean, I don't think that's a secret. I think Kevin Barbay has been a complete disaster for Mississippi State so far, and it really is embarrassing how bad Kevin Barbay is. I mean, let's take this. Will Rogers was out on Saturday. Woody Marks was out on Saturday. But, I mean, we heard during the preseason that Mississippi State was going to be running things under center, that they were going to be more of a balanced style offense and have a little bit more fun and everything. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen the tight ends really be utilized a whole lot this season. We've seen a lot of helter-skelter stuff, going shotgun on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, try to get the first down. Stuff like that just doesn't make sense. I had to go back and look at the first half stats, but I know Mississippi State had 4 or 5 punts that could have easily been avoided had Mississippi State had the right play call and not running a quarterback draw out of the shotgun on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. Mississippi State was, I think, I have to go back and look at the stats. I don't have it right off the top of my head. They were like 2 for 12 or 2 for 14 on 3rd downs on Saturday, which has been the case all season long.
Yeah.
Just because play calling has been atrocious. So yes, answer your question. If Zach Arnett keeps his job, which I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen with Zach Arnett. But if he does keep his job, there's going to be coaching changes, whether it be Kevin Barbay, even with the defense, as far as the defense goes. There's going to have to be, changes made in this Mississippi State locker room this offseason to really try to continue building Mississippi State for the future. I have to be careful what I have to say there because Zach Arnett did take over a very unfortunate, a very dire situation with the passing of Mike Leach. And he won the fan base over in the offseason, said all the right things, did all the right things, went down there, won the Outback Bowl, the Outback Bowl. And really did a wonderful job kind of weathering that storm. But since then, he has kind of taken his team over, and the personality, the coordinator hirings have not been the greatest. And it really is unfortunate that you have a quarterback, an all-SEC quarterback in Will Rogers, when he's healthy, and you're not letting Will Rogers do what Will Rogers does. You're not letting Woody Marks do what Woody Marks does best. Tulu Griffin at the wide receiver ranks, Xavier Thomas. We saw Xavier finally get a touchdown catch over the weekend against Auburn. There's a lot of guys on this roster. Ryland Good is another one at tight end that are not being used to their full potential. It goes back to Kevin Barbay, and it goes back to this offensive scheme, and it's just not working for Mississippi State right now.
No, it's not. And I don't understand why coaches, when they come in, they want to put their own identity on something. But, when Tim Cook took over at Apple for Steve Jobs, he didn't go in there and undo everything Steve Jobs has done. And, imagine Zach Arnett's been there for this is his 4th year at State. First year as the head coach. I go back to what my friend Tim Horton said. Frank Broyles told him and his father, Coach Harold Horton at Arkansas. If you've made the wrong hire and you know it in your heart, in your gut, cut bait and run. Get rid of him. You got to do it. And I'm not advocating that for Zach Arnett. I'm saying that's how you got to do it, because you look at these programs that waited out on a coach. Coaches got longer, Mitch, even if they were miserable failures in the decades ago, long before we had these big buyouts. Now, when they've got these buyouts that the agents and the athletic directors get together, and it's awful what they do. But coaches were given years when they were terrible. We're gonna have a good squad next year. It doesn't work that way. If a guy's not the right hire, you got to get rid of him. But the people that put these buyouts together should be held accountable for malpractice.
And Rob, the thing about it is, I think that if a fan base is turning against the coach, I think that is kind of the signs of, okay, hey, like maybe it's time to kind of make a decision. Mississippi State could go out and get anybody from Mike Elko at Duke. They could get anybody like that is at a lower tier ACC program that has done a lot of success. But I don't know. I don't know the right answer to this. I love Zach Arnett as a person. But sometimes this is a business, and you got to go with what your gut is telling you. Mississippi State has a lot of momentum right now in their athletic department, with basketball being as good as it is. Baseball, softball's on a roll. Baseball is going to have a really good season this year. The only thing that's really struggling, women's basketball is having a really good year, by the way, track and field, swimming, all those sports. But what's really struggling is football. The dollars bring in for football, but they're struggling. And it's hard for Mississippi State fans to get, up and ready for this team, because they are struggling so much. And no offense to Auburn, but Saturday was a very winnable game for Mississippi State. They should have gone in there and at least made it competitive. And instead, in the first half, man, Auburn just completely railed all over them, and they dominated Mississippi State, and they were up 24-3 at halftime. That's the type of performances that if you're a Mississippi State fan, you're not liking to see. And unfortunately, that's been the case for the Alabama game, the LSU game. South Carolina got a large lead over Mississippi State.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But looking at this next opponent, I see the comment right there. Kentucky and Mississippi State, two teams that tend to get down early. Tennessee jumped out on Kentucky. I was listening to it on the way back from Auburn on Saturday night. Tennessee jumped out on Kentucky. And Kentucky didn't have enough to finish the game. So Saturday in Davis Wade is going to be a very ugly wake-up call for somebody, because somebody's going to leave Davis Wade Stadium pretty pissed off about the rest of the season.
Well, when you get two bad teams playing against each other as the season goes on, the old term, two dogs barking at each other or a pillow fight, and it's frustrating. But I go back to what I said. These athletic directors and university presidents that work with these agents who sign, and they basically, it's terrible what they do. It's a ball and chain to the school. They put them in with these $25, $30 million buyouts. In the case of Texas A&M, Coach Jackie Sherrill said on the show a couple of weeks ago, he said, look, when the price of oil is way up, $85, $90 a barrel, that's great for the economy in the state of Texas. It's not good for the rest of the country. When oil price is down per barrel, it's great for the rest of the country, but not so great for Texas. And he said that means, they could knock out $75 million to make Jimbo Fisher go away. I cannot imagine if I ever had a client that was that stupid who would say, I'm going to piss $75 million down the toilet to make some coach go away. You've got to be a living brain donor to do that. Okay? That right there. So the people that signed, Ross Bjork gave an extension to Jimbo a couple of years ago. Hold these people accountable, and you will stop it. Because as Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, and I just got to, they just put me on. I'm now a member of the Football Writers Association. I'm a member because it's for media and writers. Now, you are a hell of a writer, Mitch, and I love, and I've got so many people are commenting going, man, I'm glad Mitch had a great time. It's great. You are going out and doing, you're your own Skywriters tour. And I hate that I wasn't down there, but we'll get you back down there. But Mitch, you work your ass off. And I appreciate that, because you're going out and meeting the people. You're interviewing the coaches. And you know what off the record and on the record means? I mean, we need more people doing what you're doing. I'm telling you. That's why I love it when you're on here with these other writers. But the people, as Ken Capps said, that $75 million to make Jimbo Fisher go away, if they fire him this year, do you know how many academic scholarships kids could go to college who otherwise couldn't afford it with that? We've got some really stupid people that are supposedly in leadership positions.
And Rob, the thing, back to Mississippi State right now, back to the state of Mississippi, and I do appreciate your kind words, and always, and everybody who watches the show knows that I sometimes struggle to find the words, but I really do appreciate a lot of people in the comments and the appreciation. I'm just so humbled by it. But Rob, looking at the state of Mississippi, I think another thing that's adding to the Zach Arnett thing is when you look 65, 70 miles to the other way to the west, look at the success that Ole Miss is having. Ole Miss is 8-1, 7-1 right now. They're well on their way to go into another New Year's Six Bowl. Mississippi State can be Ole Miss. They have just as nice facilities. They have the money. But unfortunately, the last 2 or 3 coaches, dating back to when Dan Mullen left for Florida, the last 2 or 3 coaches just have not been able to get it done. Mike Leach was right on the cusp of getting there, and he was right there until he passed away. And I think Mike Leach would have gotten there. I really do. But
I do. Yeah.
Zach Arnett was handed the keys to a Lamborghini and told just to go ahead and drive it, finish the job. And he has not been able to do that. Instead, he brought in his own system. He's never a head coach, didn't have the experience. And here's where Mississippi State is. They're 4-4 with 4 games remaining. they could win they could win the remaining 4, or they could lose all 4 and miss a bowl game. So it is what it is.
Well, look, I'm getting a lot of comments coming in on the text line, and I try to type these things. You can also go to our youtube.com/@sidelines_live. Type in your questions on YouTube, but we'll get them up there as fast as we can. Again, Randy in Memphis about Zach Arnett. When you take over a successful operation, you don't have to gut the thing and get rid of everybody and bring in your own people. If you've got a system that works, why screw it up? And you look at some of these living brain donors that could screw up a 2-car funeral, and you wonder, how did they get in positions of leadership or authority? You know what I always say? They've got photographs of somebody doing something they shouldn't be doing with a live animal, or I don't know what, but it's never, you can't explain it. You cannot. And Mississippi State, look, they got a $100 million gift this past year from one of their alumni, an alumnus of the school, plural being alumni. I took word wealth, Mitch, in 10th grade from Brother Stephen Schonhoff, and I would have been popped on the knuckles with a ruler for that one. But an alumnus of the school gave him $100 million out in Houston. He's an oil and gas guy. They've got money at stake. All these schools have money. But when you go coach, like if I were going to buy a grocery store in a small town in Arkansas that had 7 or 8 employees that had been there for 25, 30 years, and the owner sold it to me, and I knew those employees were good people, I would keep every one of them and give them a retention bonus. Okay. And that makes me mad because hell yeah, I'm an Auburn grad. I'm myopically focused on Auburn. I love Auburn, but also want to see these other schools. I want to beat you, but I'm with you. And State, that they could do it. Kevin Barbay, where'd this guy come from?
And here's the thing. Had Zach Arnett come in here and just ran the defense, been in charge of being a head coach, and let whoever, Kendall Briles,
exactly.
Lincoln Garrett Riley, any of those guys come in here and run the air raid offense, Zach Arnett would be praised right now. Mississippi State could be sitting here going 8-9 wins again after last season, but instead he hired a guy that doesn't know how to use the players that he has. I mean, Will Rogers is an air raid quarterback. Mike Wright, as much as he runs, he opens up the passing lanes for Will Rogers, Tulu Griffin, and all those guys to make plays. This offense right now is so archaic. It reminds me of 1960s college football. It's just, the offense for Mississippi State, there's no excuse for it. Mississippi State was given the opportunity to have a great season.
Yeah, I'm going to throw an interesting stat at you. Clemson's got a hell of a football program. From 2015 to 2019, in that 5-year period, they played for the college football national championship 4 out of 5 years. They lost a total of 5 games in 5 years. You know how many first-round offensive linemen Clemson has had drafted in the last 60 years?
How many?
0.
Really?
That's an amazing stat. But Dabo doesn't like the portal. He loves his culture. I get that. I appreciate that. He's from Pelham, Alabama. If you don't love that guy's story, his mom moved in with him in college. I mean, they went through hard times. She used to cook, meals, and everybody came over to Dabo's. I pull for that guy. I like him. Walked on at Alabama on the 92 national championship team. But his mentor, Gene Stallings, I'm a huge fan of both of them. But, you got to adapt, improvise, and overcome. I'm not saying, sell out, but things are changing, but you still can have discipline and be tough and all like that. The Mississippi State deal, think about it. Mario Cristobal built a hell of a culture for 4 years at Oregon. Dan Lanning goes out there. He doesn't gut the operation. And then he gets Bo Nix to leave Auburn. Who wouldn't want to leave Auburn if Brian Harsin was your head coach? I'd rather bang my head into the wall 6 times an hour than play for that guy. But look at Oregon. You could argue that Oregon, had it not been for, Lanning's kind of boneheaded move, people say, in that Washington game, Oregon went on the road to Salt Lake City and beat Utah 35-6 Saturday.
Yeah.
Do what?
Beat
Utah.
Beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, 35-6. And look, somebody said on this show, I've never seen a former player who's transferred from one school to another have as much love as Bo Nix from the Auburn people. But I think deep down, Auburn people know his father is an Auburn legacy. Patrick, he's the coach at Phoenix City Central, 30 minutes away. They typically have 25 to 30 Division I players on the roster every year, 9th through 12th grade. That's amazing. One of them being Cam Coleman, the wide receiver, who's committed to Texas A&M. But I'll be willing to bet you a steamer pack of crystals he flips to Auburn before signing day. But that's another story. But, Mitch, we got a couple more minutes. You're making great points. And I love the fact, if you were going to talk to Zach Arnett right now, what would you ask him about? I mean, because you see Hudson in Tupelo, Mississippi. Mississippi State University is on course for the worst season in recent history. It shouldn't be this way.
What I would ask him about is, why did you gut the program? Why did you start over with the program? Why did you come in here and completely change everything when everything was working for Mike Leach? I mean, Mike Leach had an Egg Bowl victory. He had a win over Illinois in the bowl game. Everything was, and all these recruits and all this excitement was building around Mississippi State football. Why did you come in here? And I get it, you want to implement your system, but why were you given the keys to a Lamborghini and then crash it into the side of the railway? I don't get it. I don't understand it, especially when Mississippi State has so much momentum going on.
Yeah, that's it.
Right now with basketball, women's basketball, baseball. Why? Why did you do this? And now Mississippi State fans, and I've learned this since living down here, Mississippi State fans are some of the most loyal, diehard fans in the country. And they are continually showing up to games. They're continually going out here to support these guys. And you're giving them such a crappy product to cheer about. I don't understand it. This offense, man, he could have hired Art Briles, could have hired Garrett Riley. Any of these guys who were still Cliff Kingsbury could have been hired. And instead, he went with a totally different offensive set where his guys on the roster were not programmed to run a spread, balance, slow it down offense. They were, Will Rogers brought in to score 60 points a game. That's what Will Rogers does. And now you've kind of wasted away the senior year of Will Rogers.
If I'm Will Rogers, I mean, I know he's not going to do it, but I would sue for coaching malpractice. So how do you think KJ Jefferson feels at Arkansas? KJ almost transferred to Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And I bet you Arkansas fans that were dog cussing Kendall Browse all the time would take him back in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have to go with a Band-Aid approach for the rest of the season. Inexcusable. And now Sam Pittman is under a lot of criticism, as you know. Bottom line is you got to be smart. You've got to use your head. People don't plan to fail, but they fail to plan. You're right. Will Rogers, again, his father, great high school coach in Rankin, Mississippi. How did it get to this point? It's crazy. Mitch, look, I know you got to go put on your cape and become super banker there. Tell people where you work real quick, in addition to pounding out podcasts, written content, and everything every day. Let them know how they can follow you, and we'll talk to you again here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, themitchdavisshow.com, MitchDavis_8 on Twitter. Going to have a couple big podcasts this week. Rob, hopefully get you back on. Hopefully we get the timing down. Going to have Sean Smith from Go Big Blue Country on the podcast to preview the Kentucky-Mississippi State game. It's going to be interesting. Friday, we're going to be joined by Blake Lovell from 14 Southeastern, talk about SEC basketball. And then maybe on Thursday, I'm working on timing with Tanner Allen, the legendary Mississippi State baseball player who is a College World Series champion. So busy week on the podcast, and of course, articles, everything, themitchdavisshow.com. Rob, I really appreciate it. I look forward to coming back on and look forward to having you on hopefully on Friday.
Absolutely. I am ready for service at 12 p.m. Central. Hey, have a great one. We'll take a quick break. Be right back. Jason Caldwell, Alabama Sports Writer of the Year, Auburn Undercover after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sideline.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, Rob Browne bringing in Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover. I want to say it is cold. It's probably, I don't know, what do you think, 40 degrees up here in Memphis and across county this morning. Get out to Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. They got biggest order ever for Filson. They got Schaefer Outdoors, Pendleton. They've got Duckheads like nobody else, over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots, kids' toys. If you are looking for something to look great in, men's and women's clothing, something to keep you warm now that it's getting cold again, you need to go out to Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Where is it? Jake, on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Jason, man, you were so right. Sound like Carl Stevens on the old South Central Bell Auburn football review with Shug Jordan. You're so right, Carl, but you've been saying this. Go tempo. My wife, Audrey, growing up with 6 brothers, she's seen a few football games. She kept saying, I put in that Peyton guy. Things go faster when he's in, but you just said put in tempo, and you were right. Let's talk about what you saw Saturday, your takeaways, and you had some great questions in the post-game press conference, as you always do.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I just been waiting for them to get back to what they do. Hugh Freeze and Philip Montgomery are both tempo guys, and for 4 games or so, they said, look, the best chance for us to win games, they felt like at the time, was going to be to slow it down. It worked against Texas A&M and Georgia, did not work against LSU and Ole Miss, and it seems like that would be the opposite, but it wasn't the case. And offensively, they just kind of became stagnant, and it went from Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford in certain situations to just shuffling them back and forth. And then they went Saturday. I think they were still planning on playing Robbie Ashford a little more, but once they got off to the start they did, they were like, look, that's just Peyton Thorne. And I think they figured out that this is an offense that probably functions better, in my opinion, with him running the show. He's running the ball well enough. He's making really good decisions in the run game. And they're throwing the football. They spread some receivers around and got the ball to different guys. We saw Javarius Johnson again get involved. We saw, Caleb Burton be in the mix. We saw a bunch of different faces, but you also saw it take some pressure off of Rivaldo Fairweather and him not have to be the number 1 target. And I thought it helped his game. But Jarquez Hunter looks healthy again and is running better, and looks like he's kind of getting into a little bit of rhythm there. But yeah, to me, tempo creates rhythm if you can make a few plays. They made a few plays early. They got rhythm. And I've heard, people keep talking about the second half. They had one possession in the third quarter. People's like, well, the defense got gas because Auburn's offense. No, Mississippi State had the ball twice. They ran 19 plays in the third quarter and scored 10 points.
Yeah,
Auburn had one possession in the third quarter, and they were backed up to their own 5 and 15. Had a couple of penalties that cost them, but hey, they won a game. And I can promise you this: 100% of the time, if Auburn throws the ball from their own 5-yard line, throws a pick six, 100% of the people are complaining about that call.
Yeah,
they're not going to complain. They might say they won. No, they're 100% of people going to complain. They won the game. Did they score 50? No, I don't think this team was prepared to score 50 quite yet. But it was a much better performance offensively. Got some rhythm going. Got a little confidence now. See if you can carry it over to Vandy this weekend.
Yeah, and Jason, lots of comments coming in, and I'm going to start throwing some of the questions at you. I like this one. Let's see. Andrew in Madison, Alabama, Huntsville. Auburn showed life on Saturday. Will Freeze continue to call plays? I don't know if he called plays or not, but also as a follow-up to that, Ken Austin, what's his role?
Yeah, right now he's just an analyst right now,
Okay.
And he does help the day-to-day operations. Can't really coach up players doing that thing, but there's no question he helps and kind of, especially from tendencies. And I think getting back to this in the passing game probably a big part of that. But Freeze was obviously more involved in the offense this week. I asked him that Saturday night, and he said, "Yeah, I was more involved." I don't think he was the only play caller. But I don't think there's any question that he was more involved in that of the development of the offense, all those things. We saw him Tuesday at practice, and he was still going around to every group. He wasn't just focusing on the offense. And so that shows me that it wasn't, hey, it's all mine again. I don't think that was the case, because if it was, you don't have time to go around and do those things. Matter of fact, he was going around to different groups, came over and spoke to me, spoke to a few other reporters as he was going back around to practice. And so I don't think that's the case if it's just him. And so I think it's a continuation of what they've done, probably just more involved.
Talking with my Ole Miss friends that know Hugh Freeze really well, and a lot of people in Memphis that do, they said a couple of things. They said, number one, Auburn people, you're out of your mind if you're getting on this guy's case. It said he will never be caught again, ever, without a 5-star type quarterback again. And, when he got there, maybe he wasn't sure, but he'll figure it out and he'll get more involved. And he said, but they said, within a couple of years, Auburn will be locked in on the CFP, especially with a 12-team playoff. And I think what he was trying to say was everybody's got to calm down. I can tell you on the investment side, I was looking at a client's account the other day. We looked at 2 big investments we made, February 27th and March 11th of 2020. How's that for timing? March 11th, that night, they declared a worldwide pandemic. And we looked at them and we're up. So if we would have, panicked, see, that's the same thing in coaching. Jason, you got such a good head about you. You ask a lot of really good questions. When you go to practice, you're over there watching, you're listening. I think that those Ole Miss people are right about Freeze.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's necessarily 5-star quarterback. I think you got to get a quarterback that can do what you want him to do.
Yeah.
But you got to get 5-star talent around those guys. That makes the difference. I mean, look at what we just saw from Georgia. It is not. You got to have the guy that runs the show. I mean, hey, Mac Jones. Mac Jones is not a 5-star quarterback. He might make it and he might win 10 Super Bowls in the NFL. But that guy is not the most talented quarterback we've ever seen.
No.
He had a bunch of really talented wide receivers around him that led an offense that was really good. That's the next step. We saw, guys that made plays and do these things at wide receiver. But if you have guys that are winning one-on-one battles at wide receiver, and you got speed and you got size and you got athleticism, as the guys they're bringing in now, can you add a Cam Coleman or a Ryan Williams to that group and give you those guys? That's the key for me. Is Peyton Thorne a guy that's going to play in the NFL and win a bunch of games? Probably not. But is he good enough with other players around him to be better? I think so. You got a commitment from Walker White, who I think is a really talented quarterback in Arkansas. They'll continue to add to that room and create competition. I don't think there's any question about that. But the key for me is it's not just quarterback. It is everything. Everything has to be better. The offensive line played better when you started talking about this group. That was, I thought, their best performance of the year the other day. Still had to shove some guys around, all those things. But I'm laughing at this one. This Hank Hill that Lincoln Riley and Hugh Freeze better learn the defense. When Hugh Freeze had a defense at Ole Miss that led the nation in scoring defense.
Yep. Yeah.
This has nothing to do with Hugh Freeze. This has everything to do with lack of recruiting by previous staffs.
Yeah.
So that one's a ridiculous question or comment.
Yeah, and listen, here's another thing, and I agree. Hugh Freeze, when I look back at his tenure at Ole Miss, the 5 years he was there, that's where that land shark defense, that's where all that stuff came from. So for people, no, Lincoln Riley, yeah, he doesn't get it. Hugh Freeze does. He understands. And I'll throw something for you. I'm just curious, and I like this question. Rob Anderson, Jason, 7 wins, still achievable goal. We're going to Nashville this weekend for the game. Auburn's sitting there at 4-4, got 4 games left, just, one chapter at a time. Take care of business there. Don't assume you're going to beat Arkansas. Don't assume you're going to beat New Mexico State, but selfishly, being from Memphis, Auburn goes 7-5 or 8-4. Do they go to the Liberty Bowl? My man Harold Grader's on the show a lot. He's the executive VP of the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. In this season, with all that's been going on the last few years, I think Auburn would take a ton of people to whatever bowl game they go to, especially the Liberty Bowl. The Auburn brand, I looked it up in the Wall Street Journal. It's Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Auburn. Auburn's brand 2 years ago was $872 million by the Journal. I think it's gone up because that includes all sports, World Series, its value, 90,000. They've been packing up every game. So the people that are these negative doom and gloomers, Jason, they're not season ticket holders.
Yeah, no, it's 7 wins is, again, I come back to what I talked about this summer. I thought this was a team that was about 7-5, had a chance to be 8-4 if everything fell perfectly. They're on track for that. Now, Can you sustain offensively? Can you grow offensively? Can you add a few more pieces on defense right now? And can you get a help from maybe a couple more of those young guys on the defensive front? Those are things you're probably going to need. But no, it's absolutely possible. Before we talked about last week, this was the time where you had a chance to do something after all the difficulties you had. But it started with last week. Could you go out and improve? Can you build a little? And as Hugh Freeze said, can you get a little swag? You don't want Deion Sanders swag, but you want to have a little bit. And probably for the first time since early in the season, a little bit of that showed up on Saturday. Now you get a little bit more bounce in your step in practice. Hey, we can actually do this. We can make a play in the passing game. And now you go to Vandy, where Auburn's only played there. I'm trying to think how many times in my 24 years, probably only 3 times, maybe. The Dan Stricker ball bounced off the wall, or they gave him a touchdown in 2001, maybe-ish, somewhere around in there. And then 2008, 2012, maybe. I think that's it. So I think that's the only times I've been. Yeah. Every time I've been that Auburn's had a majority of the fans. We'll see what that looks like Saturday, but this is not going to be like going to Kyle Field or to Baton Rouge. Yeah,
I already know. Nashville, there's a lot of Auburn alumni that live in the Memphis area, a lot. And I say this in all seriousness, a lot of times out in Cordova, Collierville, Germantown, East Memphis, on any given day in the last decade, you might see more Auburn and Alabama stickers on cars than Tennessee. That's how crazy it is. That's hard to believe because Tennessee has an unbelievable fan base. But in Nashville, there are a ton of Auburn alumni out there. And I know a lot of tailgate parties. The White Animals are playing Friday night at the Exit Inn right next to Vanderbilt's campus. I think it's going to be an Auburn-dominated crowd. I mean, Auburn might take over the stadium. That's the way I'm starting to feel it. Here's a question. Kenneth in Memphis, talk about the Walker White recruiting effect, but I also want to ask you something. I saw somebody getting after somebody's ass on the sidelines after that false start penalty deep Auburn near the goal line when Auburn had a big play for a first down and had to be called back. Was that Jake Thornton? I mean, I hadn't seen that in a while. That was refreshing. Well, you've hit mute. Jason? Yep.
It wasn't a false start. It was a lineman downfield.
Oh, that's ineligible. That's right.
Yeah, Dylan Wade. But after talking to folks, they said they felt like his heels were probably on the line. It was a little borderline.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think he had fired off and was trying to kind of hold back and they got caught there. Yeah, that was a throw to Brandon Frazier on 3rd and 10. It would have gotten you off the goal line, gotten you a first down. And then you're probably able to start maybe going a little tempo and throwing the football when you get a little bit of space there. And that probably hurt them some. And Mississippi State was like, hey, we're loading up. And for Auburn, the worst thing you could do down on that side is – so it was a pretty safe pass. Just happened to have a mistake there. So you had a couple of plays still for this team. Now, they made more plays, but there were a couple of plays still that kept it from being really comfortable, easy win. That was one. Marcus Harris, grabbing a running back on 3rd and a mile and giving him a first down was a huge play. It led to them kind of having another drive there. So you had a couple of those. Brian Batty fumbles a kickoff or muffs a kickoff, and you have to start on your own 15. So those are some plays that probably kept you from being able to kind of open it up a little bit more in the second half.
You look at it, this Walker White over in Little Rock, one of the best players in Arkansas. Talk about him, and he's really working hard to recruit other players around him. Mentioned Cam Coleman over in Phoenix City. Mark Murphy, remember several years ago, said, there might be 25 to 30, and you probably would agree, Division I players, grade 9 through 12, on the roster at Phoenix City Central. Patrick Nix is the coach there. And I have people, you probably hear it too. Does he still love Auburn? Of course he does. He's a first-class guy. The Nix family, they're great people. And Bo, it was frustrating sometimes at Auburn, but, man, I'm pulling for that guy just like if he was playing for Auburn, unless he was playing Auburn. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I'd never do that. But talk about that.
Yeah, obviously Walker's a guy that's been heavily involved in recruiting since he committed. Talking to guys, they've got a group chat, and we went and saw him the first game of the year. They're texting each other how their games went and stats and all these things, and so they in continuous contact with each other, especially that wide receiver group. And so Walker's a guy that I think obviously is recruiting Cam Coleman, Ryan Williams. They were there a couple of weeks ago, and so I think he is heavily involved in recruiting. But having a guy like that is an important part of recruiting because wide receivers want to go, hey, I want to go and play with a guy and my guy that's coming in, that my guy that's recruited in the same class. And so Walker's a guy that they've been able to kind of, hey, here's our guy. This is when they first got to Auburn, that's the guy they pointed out and said, hey, here's our number one guy. And they went and got their number one guy. And so I think, there's some excitement with this group coming in offensively especially from a talent standpoint of infusing things. And most of those guys are planning to come in January. We'll go through spring practice, which is such a big deal. We see it right now with Connor Liu. When Connor Liu comes in spring practice, offensive line, and now has started a game, has played a majority of another game, and has played pretty darn well for a true freshman in the middle of an offense against two teams that blitz a lot. So the value of having guys in early is really big.
Yeah, and I think Connor Liu is, again, right outside of Atlanta, big-time 4-star recruit. I think he had 67 snaps he played. Y'all Folks, look, you want to know what's going on at Auburn? Subscribe to Auburn Undercover. I mean, I looked up last night. I'm reading. I couldn't stop reading, Jason. All the content, Nathan King, Philip Marshall. There's so much good content. It's relevant. It's not a lot of sunshine pumping. It's telling it like it is. I mean, they say it. And you know what? You don't have to try to destroy somebody to be critical. You can do it in a constructive way. True Grit Journalism, Auburn Undercover. Do yourself a favor. Read it and relish it. It's something special. Throw this one in. Billy in Brookhaven, Georgia. Yeah, not Atlanta. I feel like Auburn fans know there's something special building on the Plains. As frustrating as losing is, you go back to previous coaches. If they show fight early on, that's what you want. You start filling in the pieces. And Jason, nobody has more miles on the ground than you and that Auburn Undercover staff, Clemente, all of y'all. You go see these players play. Talk about that.
Yeah, no, that was the first thing that had to change. Here's all I needed to know, and all fans should need to know about the possibilities of Hugh Freeze and this staff in terms of talent. They flipped 3 guys at the end of the year last year. Kayan Lee, Connor Lew, Keldrick Falk. All 3 of those true freshmen have already started games for this team.
Yeah.
Those are 3 guys that were not going to be a part of this class. And they came in and got those guys committed, signed, and on the field in spring practice. And it has led to them starting games. They didn't get hired. They had 3 weeks or less than 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And they accomplished those feats in less than 3 weeks. Going out and finding guys, hey, who we believe can help us immediately. And that was 3 of the guys. And so that's all, to me, that's all I needed to see is going, look, they were able to do something that the previous staff and Brian Harsin didn't really try a whole lot to even recruit most of those guys. But yeah, they pinpointed guys, got them on board, got them in school, and those guys are now playing key roles for this team in year number 1. There'll be more of those guys next year. You look at the wide receiver group, and you already got Bryce Kane committed, Perry Thompson committed, Malcolm Simmons committed. Those 3 guys are going to have a chance to jump in right away and compete for starting jobs. Think about they're going to have guys as pass rushers. Joe Phillips from here in Tuskegee. Yeah. That was everybody thought was the same one to Georgia. DeMarcus Riddick was committed to Georgia. Those are guys, DJ Barber, linebacker from Clay Caldwell, guys that are going to have a chance to play early. Up front, you got a couple of guys. Malik Blockton is killing it at Pike Road. Marcus Harris's younger brother. They've got guys that are going to have a chance to come in and play early. They'll probably still go and grab a few transfers. I think that's still something you have to do, especially where they are right now. But this is a class that I think is going to have more impact players coming in, and that's how you have to build. And that's the key word. This was not ever going to be a season like 1993, like 2013, because the talent level. You weren't going to just let's snap our fingers and go back to winning 12 games. This wasn't, that way.
Yeah. Is Jacobs out for the season? Question from Shoney, Valdosta, Georgia.
I'm just drawing a blank. Who?
Yeah, I'm not sure which team. Okay, that's a different team he's asking about. But let me ask you this: you talk about Marcus Harris, and y'all talked about it in Auburn Undercover. What a workhorse! I'm going to go way back in time, but I remember a guy in 1981, Pat Dye's first team. He was a DJ on Sunday afternoon. He hosted a jazz show. Had this unbelievable deep baritone voice from Tampa, Florida. Number 99, defensive tackle Edmund Nelson. He showed so much fight and grit. And you're talking about, in high school, we used to come back on the way back from the beach. I used to go to the library at Auburn, and the guy that ran the archives department would let me go down there and watch the old reels of the film of the games. So I just remember being there in the summer of 1981 before the first game, Edmund Nelson. And he went on, of course, played for the Steelers. That's Marcus Harris. He has become one of my favorite ever all-time Auburn players. He never complains. Y'all talked about it yesterday. He's holding that defensive line together. And then let's talk about the big guy, number 15, the true freshman from Highland home, Keldrick Fall. God bless. And his little brother's already committed to Auburn too.
Yeah, Marcus has been a warrior for this team, and right now is the one guy that's really able to get penetration from that defensive line up front consistently. He's been the guy that has made plays. Obviously, Keldrick's a guy that continues to come on, and I think he's not even scratching the surface of what he's going to be. And he has never really played a down defensive line position, even in high school. I mean, he was a wide receiver, tight end, stand-up outside linebacker, wildcat quarterback. I mean, that's what he was this time a year ago in 2A football in Alabama. And now he's starting games on the defensive line with his hand in the dirt. This is a learning experience for him. That maybe the guy that I think is going to make the most impact for this team down the stretch if he can stay healthy is Jalen McLeod. Thought he played really well against Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Finally healthy. He did a good job of reading plays and not necessarily just tearing off the edge every time against an athletic quarterback like Mike Wright. And staying at home led to a 4th down stop the other day that was a huge momentum boost for Auburn going into halftime because they went down and scored a touchdown. Those are guys that I think I look at the rest of this way are going to be really key players for this team, and for a defense that has to figure out a way to get off the field a little bit more on 3rd down. You look in Mississippi State had some sustained drives in the second half. That helped to kind of, like I said, they had, I think, 19 plays in the 3rd quarter. That's hard to deal with, and Auburn had 1 possession. So Marcus Harris, though, has been so good, and these weeks to get back healthy are really vital for him from a training table standpoint. Yeah.
Real quick, the Vandy game, Auburn's a 13.5-point favorite. That's 2 weeks in a row. What does Auburn need to look out for against Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I think it's a team that got one of the best wide receivers. Will Shepard's really good wide receiver, so they got the ability to make some big plays in the passing game. That's what they've done this year. But you saw Saturday, Walter Taylor Jr. kind of thrown into the mix, a running quarterback from Jackson, Alabama. So that's the same place Nehemiah Pritchett's from. They got a quarterback now committed to South Carolina there. That's just a junior. Walter Taylor's a big physical kid. Looks a lot like Mike Wright. Very similar body style. That we'll probably see at least 2 quarterbacks from Vandy on Saturday. So you have to prepare for different types of offenses, those things. But I think for Auburn, it's just, you're still hungry. It's not like you're 8-0 right now. You've still got a lot of football left, a lot of things you have to work on. And I think a coaching staff that wants to finish this thing the right way. So I think that's the key for them on Saturday.
Close-knit group in the locker room, from what you can tell. These guys seem to me like they're having a lot of fun. And I think these guys that came in the portal, whatever, they look up at that crowd, and I think they're kind of like, oh, my God, we got something special here. I think I'm starting to see what you've talked about all season long. You just have to be patient. And you just said it. This isn't 93. This isn't 2013 where they were stacked with players. They just needed the right coaching and all like that. And you've hit it all right.
Yeah. And now, like I said, you got some winnable games ahead. Arkansas is really intriguing. They played a bunch of close games. Yeah. Offense hasn't been very good. Fired the offense coordinator, new play caller. Got to play Florida, a team that's coming off a beating at Georgia. And for Florida game this week reminds me of Auburn last week, where you say, if you're going to have an opportunity, you better win this one now, because Florida has Missouri, Florida State, and I can't remember the other one, but they got 3 really difficult games ahead. Oh, LSU. They got Missouri, LSU, Florida State to finish this season, and now playing Arkansas at home this week. If you're Florida, if you don't win this one, you may not get to 6 wins in year 2. And so that's where it kind of felt like Auburn last week. But if you're going to win one, even though Auburn's the rest of it, the schedule wasn't as difficult. Yeah, it needs to start somewhere. So this Arkansas team, be interesting to see what they do. But for Auburn, it's all about Auburn right now. Can you just go out and take care of your own business?
Let people know how they can follow you, Jason. Great work, and always appreciate you taking time to share with us. Got a lot more questions we couldn't get to, but we really appreciate it.
Yep, you can check us out at AuburnUndercover.com, part of the 24/7 network, and can also follow me on Twitter at ITATJason.
All right. Have a great one. Great stuff. We'll take a quick break. Be right back. Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com, hour number 2.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right. Rob Browne back here with you. Ooh, it's cold up here this morning. Bring in Franz Beard, where he can give his always famous reply. How are things down in Gainesville? Just another day in paradise.
That's right.
40 degrees up here this morning, Franz. I had to run and get a pullover to put on. It says, well, there's no way. It says, let's see, I'm looking at the morning report. It's 40, what is it right now? 42 degrees. Yeah, that's what it is. Then it's been raining. It's cold, and the wind was about 15 to 20 miles an hour right now. We got a freeze watch for tomorrow, but warm us up, Franz, with some good news. I know you do your
it's downright Arctic here. It's 69 degrees.
It's 69.
It's kind of Arctic, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe, man. It just last week we were mid to upper 80s every day through Saturday, and then it started cooling off a little bit yesterday. But starting to feel like football season, if there's such a thing as getting into November. Franz,
well, we're going to have a chilly fall day here Saturday. It's going to be 78 degrees at the swamp. So chilly day, but it's a noon start. So everybody be able to get home and get their hot chocolate and everything like that, and settle in to watch the games that really matter.
Well, let's talk about it, man. I mean, and you put out a lot of great information every day. Daily thoughts, your pithy thoughts with GatorBaitMedia.com. And, Saturday I thought Florida would jump on top early, which happened, but I felt like Georgia would win later. And one of the guests on the roundtable, one of our regulars, it was Doug Dean or Frank Duffy, said, the problem if you're Florida is Georgia's got a lot of other weapons. So instead of leaning on Brock Bowers, there are going to be some guys that maybe you're not expecting are going to have big games. Ladd McConkey was back healthy again. But talk about what the takeaways were from that 43-20 loss to Georgia. And I know Florida right now is sitting at number 2 or 3 in recruiting.
Well, one of the first things is that everybody's going to say that Billy Napier was stupid to try to trick plays. Kirby Smart even said, hey, you got to get your edge somewhere. And this is the thing. Did he choose the right plays? No. Was he at the right time for it? Yes. Okay. And here's the thing. He even pointed out, he says it's about executing. On the first trick play, the pitch to Ricky Pearsall, a little bit behind him. He's got to slow down. He's got to make sure he secures the ball so it doesn't fumble. That ends up to be a 3-yard loss. The second one, the snap is high. That threw everything off. He needed the snap belly high. The snap comes up in his eyes. And you played enough football to know if the ball's coming at your eyes, you're not seeing what's coming at you and what you got to do. 2 plays, execution-wise, was off. But if they make those 2 plays, does it make a difference in the ball game? Maybe in the score, but not the outcome. Georgia is that much better. And my first takeaway is this: Georgia is better, especially on both lines. Their offensive line's better. Their defensive line's better. Their second team offensive line is better than our first team offensive line. Their second team defensive line is better than our first team defensive line.
Yeah.
That's the first takeaway. They're too deep, all good players. We don't have it. We just don't have it. That's one of the things that you've got to find. Florida can play skilled people with Florida's skilled people can play in the SEC with anybody. Ricky Pearsall is tremendous wide receiver. And I think everybody saw Trey Wilson is going to be an absolute stud. He is he's the next Kadarius Toney in that stop and start guy that can do some. I mean, the guy had 12 catches the other day. I mean, he's got some skills. Where Florida's got to get help is on the defensive line and the offensive line. Those are your first priorities.
Yeah.
Your next priority is this. You've got to find physical corners who can cover. This is one of the things that Georgia has. This is one of the things that Alabama has. They got grown men playing cornerback who not only can jam people at the line, but can run with them down the field. We got guys that can run. We don't have guys that can jam. That's a problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Our safeties that we're playing two freshmen. You know, you're not going to win in the SEC with freshman safeties. You know, you just aren't. You look at the 2008 Florida National Championship team. Two juniors experienced in Ahmad Black and two experienced guys, Ahmad Black and Major Wright back there. And look at what a difference those two guys made. You know, Major Wright makes the hit on the first play of the national championship game and just about destroyed a one wide receiver. He didn't catch another pass, I don't think. And then Ahmad Black comes up with the game-saving interception up around midfield that led to Florida's clinching drive. So you got to have experience, and this is the thing. The Gators. You've heard me say it before, Rob. Everybody in the SEC has 22 players. Everybody. Yeah. I don't even care. You know, you can talk about Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's got 22 players. Okay. Mm-hmm. What Vanderbilt doesn't have is 33. Okay. If you got 33, you can win 5 or 6 ball games. You got 44, you might get to 8. The teams that win 9 and 10, they may, you know, they're probably going to be up around 50 good players.
Yeah.
Then you get to the Georgia and the Alabama. They got 60 of them.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. This is the thing. They've got people. They have people in their 2 and 3 deep who are capable of stepping in and playing immediately. They have people, you know, a third string safety at Georgia starts at Vanderbilt, for example. That's just the difference. That's just the difference in the whole thing, is that when you've got a 3 deep like they've got, and they're all 4 and 5 star guys, you're just replacing one great player with another great player.
Yeah.
And the difference is the guy who's starting has the most experience. The guy who's the second teamer is just behind him in terms of experience, and the third teamer is the freshman who is a stud, but getting that. So this is the difference. Is Florida is at that 44 level, okay, 5 to 7 wins, and that's just reality. Next year, I think Florida will be up at that 50. I think Florida will be up at that 50 level, and that's what you're going to have. The biggest thing, I think, Billy's got the 3rd ranked recruiting class right now, Rob.
Yeah.
I think it's going to get better. I think they're going to I think they're going to flip Jermaine Smith, the wide receiver down in Hollywood, Florida, is the number one wide receiver in America. He's committed. He is committed to Ohio State right now. I think they're going to get the L.J. McCray's teammate, who's a stud corner and big physical guy at Mainland. I think they're going to get the big offensive lineman down at IMG. I feel very, very good about him. He's another 5-star they're going to get. So they're going to close really, really hard with some good players. But that just doesn't change the fact that you got to have some immediate help. This is where getting the good players in the portal is going to be. And as for Terry in Atlanta, DJ Lagway, some people say, is the best quarterback in the country. He's committed to the Florida, and he's one of the large reasons that Florida has a number 3 recruiting class, because he's like a Pied Piper and kids want to come play with him.
Well, I mean, the great players attract other people to want to be around them, and that's what happens. And you're right. DJ Lagway is a big-time recruit. And, people always are asking, like Terry in Atlanta, finding those quarterbacks. I know, Auburn's got Walker White coming out of Little Rock Christian. And I've heard people criticize and say, well, the other 5-star quarterbacks they brought from Arkansas, Kyle Frazier from Springdale, Shiloh Christian, I think, and Cody Burns didn't pan out. Well, they were different kind of quarterbacks. And you also had Gus Malzahn coaching them. I mean, I've never seen a coach who can take a quarterback backwards faster than what Gus Malzahn did. Now, look, don't hate Gus, but that was his downfall. If he had a quarterback come to him that first year, if they were good, they had a great year, but they didn't develop. You talked about Graham Mertz, came from Wisconsin. Shane Matthews said it in the preseason. And when Shane Matthews says this, it carries a lot of weight. 14 years in the NFL. He said he's one of the smartest quarterbacks, he's ever seen. We talk about the supporting cast. Again, go back over that number of guys. You talk about, is it 33? Is it 44? Is it 50? What's the number again that you feel like the Gators have that could play for anybody?
44 guys.
Maybe.
But you get 44 guys in the SEC, you're going to win. You're going to win 5 to 7 ball games. That's what that's your ceiling. If you got 50 or more, if you got 50 or more players, if you got 50 good players, you're going to win 8, 9, 10. You get beyond that, you better have. You're going to be closer to 60 really good players. That's what Alabama. People say, well, why do Alabama and Georgia get there every year? It's very simple. They got more good players than everybody else. Football's a game where you get injured. Football's a game where you can't play your defensive tackle 80 snaps. If you're smart, you only play your defensive tackles 30 snaps. So if you're playing an 80-snap ball game, that means you got to have 3 defensive tackles, right? Is my math wrong? I think it's pretty good. I mean, I wasn't a math major. I'm not like you. I mean, you just figure interest rates in your head, Rob, and things like that. I can't do that. But here's the thing. You got to have that. You got to have guys that can rotate in, and they better be just as good as the guy that's rotating out. That's what separates us. Georgia comes in there, and their linebackers, they rotate them in and out, and I can't tell the difference. I mean, you wonder if they do a jersey swap on the sideline. A guy just puts on a new jersey because the last guy looks just as good and looked just as physical as the other. And you know how I hate Georgia, and I mean, this is painful for me to say this. It's downright painful to see Georgia this good, but Georgia that good. There's 2 teams in this country that should be playing for the national championship. I mean, if this were the BCS, we'd just say, okay, Georgia and Michigan, you go play it off. It ain't the BCS, so you're going to have 4 teams in there. But those are clearly the 2 best teams, and they're the 2 best teams because they have more good players than anybody else.
They do. And, let's look around. I mean, Georgia, golly, man, look at their season right now that they're having. And, comment here, Georgia wins 25th straight game. Next up, Missouri. And I'm going to look at kind of some national stuff with you right now, because you're great at covering Gators, the SEC, but you're great on the big picture as well. Northwestern's 4-4. So is Colorado, who's getting all the attention. So I'm going to throw some more points at you. Oregon beats Utah 35-6. A rematch with Washington, very likely. They did that at Utah. Kyle Whittingham in his 19th year at Utah. You never see them ranked in the top 50 in recruiting, yet they develop the hell out of players. Southern Cal's defense is horrible. What's new?
Well, here's the thing that Utah does. Utah also relies very heavily on the JUCOs. Okay. They recruit, JUCOs never show up in your recruiting. But when you pick up guys that have played 20-something ball games, and now you can plug and play a guy in there, that makes a real difference. And that's what they're able to do. Kyle Whittingham, gosh, what a good, really good football coach. Urban Meyer says he's the best coach in America. And it would be hard to argue with it, given the fact that they've had 2 or 3 undefeated seasons. Kirby has had 1. Nick has had 2 maybe. Kyle Whittingham, I think, has 3. Guy's a pretty good football coach. And yeah, they got beat, but their best 2 players are taking medical red shirts this year. The fact that they won like they have tells you an awful lot about him. So, there's a lot of good stuff going on. The Pac-12 doesn't look nearly as formidable now as it did in September. I told everybody in September, said, when the clock hits November, when the calendar turns a page to November, the SEC will still be the most dominant conference, and they still are. The difference is now you got Georgia, you got Alabama, you got LSU, you got Tennessee. You got 4 wrecking crew teams that can go in there and beat the crap out of anybody they play. And right behind them, you got a team like Kentucky. Well, you got Ole Miss. I forgot about Ole Miss. And then you got a team like Kentucky, which is just right behind them. I would put the top 6 teams in the SEC against the top 6 teams in the Pac-12 any day of the week, wouldn't you?
Against the top 6 teams in the SEC right now, against the top 6 teams in the Pac-12?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I would, because you're going to have the defensive depth on the front 7s in the SEC, which would blow them up. They would not be able to handle the physical play that the SEC schools bring.
That's a fact. And you look, and it's the usual suspects in the Big Ten. You got Penn State, which has already lost to Ohio State, which will lose to Michigan. You got Ohio State, which will lose to Michigan. Will also beat Penn State. That's it. You don't have another really good football team. Although I got a real candidate for National Coach of the Year, and he ain't going to get it, but he should be, is Greg Schiano, what he's done at Rutgers. Rutgers is 5-2. Rutgers is going to win 8 ball games.
You're right. He is a great football coach.
Yes, he is.
Nobody
else does it. They've tried other coaches, and they brought Schiano back for one reason. He's figured it out and knows how to do it there.
He has, and I go back to 2006, that Thursday night contest, Louisville versus Rutgers. Both of them in the top 5. Remember what Greg Schiano's slogan was? Keep chopping wood.
You got it.
I think about, here in the South, you see the map in the background that my friend Barnwood Brenda made. You can get one of these, folks, if you want one, hand carved out of cypress, painted, detailed, $800. Barnwood Brenda makes these. And think about the South, it's golly, man. I think about, college football, SEC versus the rest of the country. What I've seen the SEC do this year is kind of early on take a step back. I think the SEC slowed down to get faster. I know that sounds crazy, but that's kind of what's happening. And then if you look at Florida, and if Florida were a stock or a money manager or a fund, I would tell my clients, I'd say, buy all you can while it's cheap.
Yeah.
Okay. You got to remember, you want to be convincing, but you also want to look at the big picture. You cannot panic. Billy Napier is a program builder. And I'm not saying that because you're on here. I'm just going to say it because I feel it. The guy won 41 games at UL, University of Louisiana. Okay. And again, Dan Mullen wasn't relieved of his duties at Florida because he was doing a great job. It was a mess. But Florida has everything you want going for them to recruit to. Just what it is. I mean, and I go back in here, Billy Napier. He's a level-headed guy. He's not real wild and animated up there.
Never too high, never too low.
Yeah, but think about his father coached from a wheelchair. This guy is hardcore. From what little town up in South Carolina? Didn't he play football at Furman for the Paladins?
Chatsworth, Georgia.
Yeah, he's from Chatsworth.
Chatsworth, Georgia. Yeah,
okay. But he played at Furman.
And let me tell you what. This was what was so painful for him Saturday. Down the street from where his parents used to live, where his mom still lives, Lad McConkey.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, he's known Lad McConkey since the day he saw light for the first time. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was pain. And here, you think about it, here is Billy Napier. He was on the staff there with Kirby Smart. They're close friends. They know each other very well. He worked for Nick. He's on that staff with Kirby Smart. He knows Will Muschamp very, very well. All these guys, it's almost incestuous when you think about it. From a football standpoint, it's very, very incestuous. But back to your point, though, in September, everybody was saying that the best three quarterbacks in the league were Jaden Daniels, KJ Jefferson, and Spencer Rattler. Okay, well, Spencer Rattler's on a 2-16. KJ Jefferson's on 2-16. The only one that's lived the hype is Jaden Daniels. But in the meantime, there were the questions everywhere else because who's going to play? Because you got young guys coming in. Well, Devin Leary has had a so-so year at Kentucky, but you look at Graham Mertz, what he's building on. Graham Mertz is a very good quarterback. The people who trashed him early should be ashamed of themselves. Carson Beck, wow, what an arm he's got. He showed me something Saturday. I thought Carson Beck looked like an NFL quarterback. That's what I thought. But you look, Jalen Milroe is going to be all right there. Auburn's got quarterback difficulties, granted, but that'll come around. Will Rogers, experienced guy there at Mississippi State, and on and on and on. And this was the thing, was the Pac-12 had all the experienced quarterbacks. Well, here we are in November, and Florida and all these other people have got their quarterbacks now have 8 games under their belts. That's what's leveled the playing field for the SEC, and what puts the SEC over the top now is the offensive and defensive line play. That is a difference.
Well, if you don't have, you talk about, Carson Beck. Let's go back to him at Georgia. He's been averaging about 300 yards passing a game.
315.
Yeah, and he's out of Jacksonville, Florida. And he came out of high school as a 4 or a 5-star recruit.
He was a 4-star recruit, and not only that, he came to Georgia and was willing to sit instead of transfer.
That's it. Hey, we had my friend Brock Kreitz on the show Saturday on the round table, and Brock is from Naperville, Illinois. He signed with Ole Miss with Billy Dog Brewer in 1993. 1994, he had sockless Joe Lee Dunn as his coach, interim coach. 95, 6, and 7, Tupper. 3 coaches in 5 years. I said, and I worked with Brock for 5 years. He's a friend of mine, great guy, got 3 great kids. 2 of them go to school at Arkansas, Franz. That's
How about that?
Not even crazy, but he is just he's as good as it gets. He married a girl from the Mississippi Delta from Clarksdale, and heavily involved with the Ole Miss Letterman's Club, Loyalty Foundation. I said, how many times, Brock, during your 5 years coming from Naperville, Illinois, how many times during your 5 years did you want to push the transfer, I'm out of here button? And he goes, but he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't. He hung in there and he fought his ass off. And he's a very smart guy, great, good German Catholic family that he came from. I'm telling you, we can get those values back with these kids. It ain't impossible. My kids always say it ain't the kids today that are the problem. It's the parents that want to be their best friend. I will say this for the record. My kids don't like me. They love me. They don't like me. We're not friends. But you know what? I love my parents. I don't like them. I love them. I love them.
I love you.
Unconditional love. And you surround yourself with great people in your life. And don't allow negative thoughts to come into your head. But friends, you're going to be on. Wes Moore is going to be on with us in just a second from Little Rock. But I'm going to tell you, I love Billy Napier. I love his story. And you get to be around it. I don't know him. I've met him a couple of times at media days, He doesn't know me from Adam. But he'll look you in the eye when he's talking to you.
Yes, he will.
And that's a big deal. Anytime I've ever caught somebody poaching on our hunting land over the years, they always look down at the ground. Somebody's not doing something wrong, they look you in the eye. That goes a long way in recruiting. And I tell you what, you and Buddy and Ben and Allie Peak Wilbur, she's on top of that recruiting, and you know it too. You're sitting there at number 2, 3 in the country in recruiting. There's a reason for that. And remember last year when your defensive coordinator left and Buddy put that great quote? He goes, I would say, hey, we're going to miss you, but I never knew you. That was the greatest quote of the year from Buddy.
Well, here's what Billy's is into program building. And one thing that Florida fans have got to get a grip on is this. The problems that are at Florida now are not of Billy's making, okay? Yeah. This is 11 years. Will Muschamp, had he given the attention to recruiting offensive players, he'd still be the coach here, because when the defense he left behind got a mediocre coach in Jim McElwain to 2 SEC championship games because he had a world-class defense. Still clueless about the offense. Just, you'd think he would have been a better offensive coach than he was, but he wasn't. Dan Mullen came around, and I love Dan. I really do. Dan was great. But you know what the problem was? You can't recruit the same kids at Mississippi State and expect to win 10 or more games a year at Florida. Those kids at Mississippi State, 10 wins is a pipe dream. It's something to You get they put a statue for you. You were on the team that won 10 ball games. Dak Prescott was on a team that ranked number 1, and all of a sudden he can Dak Prescott, you think, walks on water like Bear Bryant. He and Bear could probably walk across the lake each other and have a conversation in mid-lake somewhere. But here's the difference. Mississippi State got to number 1 one time for 1 week, and it's still celebrated. How many weeks was Florida ranked number 1 during the Spurrier years? How many weeks was Florida ranked number 1 during the Urban Meyer years? Florida, I think, in Spurrier's 12 years there, only had 2 years when they were ranked outside the top 10 in the final poll. Which is, and see, this is the thing that Florida fans, this is what they call the Florida standard. And Mullen came here and recruited like he was still at Mississippi State and didn't see the need to go out there and put the effort in. This is why, look what Kirby said. Kirby mentioned that somebody asked him that, well, Dan Mullen picked Florida to beat you. He said, here I was thinking Dan was a friend of mine. He said, he didn't like to recruit, did he? Something like a quote like that. That was Saturday at his post-game press conference.
Yeah.
And he's right. It's not that Dan didn't like to recruit. It's that Dan wasn't willing to put in the effort to get 4 and 5-star guys.
Yeah. Franz, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Wes Moore, ESPN 103.5 The Buzz in Little Rock, 103.7 The Buzz. Supposed to join us here in just a minute. We're going to take a quick break and get back to that because recruiting is like selling anything. It's about repetition and building relationships with people and planning, going after 100 people or 2,500 in February. And by next February, you're down to 25. So you get, 1% of them. I mean, it's, but you got to get the word out there. You got to make the effort. Take a quick break. Be right back with more on Sidelines Monday kickoff.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Rob Browne back here with you. Lots going on here in the college football world. And I'm going to throw some stuff out here for you, Franz, because hopefully Wes may not have wanted to get out of bed this morning. It is cold up here. But tell you what, we get snow. We're about 30 minutes from Memphis. We're about to go back to Memphis right after the show. But back in February of 2021, in an 8-day period, we got 21 inches of snow over here. You couldn't see the road out here for 11 straight days. The sun didn't come out. All right, let's go over some more national stuff.
We had
North Carolina State beat North Carolina State beat Clemson in the Textile Bowl. 2 big engineering schools like Auburn, 24-17. Clemson has lost 4 games this year, and it's interesting. Clemson from 2015 to 2019 only lost those 5 games. They've had 12 straight seasons of 10-plus wins. That ain't happening this year. As Roy D. Mercer used to say down at the general store, it ain't going to happen. Okay, not this year.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what happened with Clemson. And this is the thing that Kirby may have happened this year.
Can you get me some coffee?
It may happen with Kirby this year. It happens with Nick every year. When you get successful, people come after your assistant coaches. The secret is replacing your assistant coaches good for good, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to lose Glenn Schumann off the Georgia staff this year. Wouldn't be surprised if Mike Bobo gets another head coaching gig somewhere because of what he's done this year with Carson Beck. And so people are going to give him a shot again. He's a good football coach. Will Muschamp isn't going anywhere because South Carolina is still paying him, and he's got South Carolina owes him, I think, another 2 years on his $18 million buyout. At one point in time, Will Muschamp, I'm told, was getting buyout money from 3 different schools. He smart guy to do that. I mean, goodness, if people would pay me not to write. Okay, if you insist, I'll do it, baby.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Look, hey, Wes is on here with us right now. Wes, man, it's cold in Arkansas today. I told him, I said, maybe Wes didn't want to get out from under the covers, but knowing you probably have been up since about 5 o'clock in the morning, dreaming about duck hunting or something. But Wes, man, here we go. Had an off week. Now you get to go down to the swamp. Let's talk about that matchup and what we expect Arkansas to do with Dan Enos not going to be calling the plays, and kind of talk about who is going to be calling the plays and what Arkansas's future is for the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, we got Kenny Guyton calling plays. Never done it before, so we don't know what to expect. The interesting thing to me, we didn't see any of practice last week, and we're not going to see any practice this week. Practices are closed. We'll hear from the coaches and the players, but we will not get to go to practice. Normally you get about a 15-minute period, and there's some good stuff in there that they get to see. And basically they get to see who's there and who's not there, and a little bit of the playbook, some of the things they're working on. Well, this week we don't have any clue. We won't even know. I mean, guys, there could have been some players who decided, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going. I'm entering the portal anyway, so no need for me to play these last 4 games. I'm not thinking there was anybody doing that, but we don't have any idea what's going on this week. And the next time we see this team in action will be Saturday morning at the Swamp.
Yeah, that's interesting. I really believe what you said. There will be players who they may even play, but they're physically there, but not mentally there. And that is really frustrating. And it's not just Arkansas. It can be any team. I already know I'm going in the portal, blah, blah, blah. What about again, Kenny Guyton calling the plays? You're going down to the Swamp. That's a tough place to play. Mentally, where do you think, you can't, nobody knows for sure, but where do you think KJ Jefferson's mind and heart is right now? He came back for this year, and I'm sure he's frustrated, but he's got a lot of NIL deals and stuff out of it, so I'm sure he's sleeping at night.
Oh yeah, no, he got paid. He got his car, and he's good. I know he's frustrated because you could see it on the field. I mean, the whole team played frustrated. The whole team played like they had checked out against Mississippi State. So I know that is the hope, that with Kenny Guyton, they get energized and believe in what he's trying to accomplish and the plays that he's calling, because to me, they did not believe in Enos anymore, and they played like it last time out. So that's one of the big reasons the move was made, was to get some energy back into this team and to get them feeling not so much confident, because that comes on the field, but believing in what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they had any confidence or belief in Dan Enos and what was going on, because it was evident that this offense was just getting worse week after week after week, and there was a lot of frustration building in.
Yeah, Franz?
Well, the question I would have for you, Wes, and I think it's a legitimate question, is do you? And of course, as you pointed out, you guys haven't been able to see practice, so you don't see if there are heads hanging or guys, not just kind of shuffling off to the next drill or whatever like that. And this is the question. I think it's legitimate: is how many of these guys have checked out? I got to wonder, this is what Billy Napier is going to have to do after, the Gators took that big loss. How many guys say, oh, look, there's only another month left in the season, and you worry that when there's only a 4-team playoff, this is the one thing about expanding the playoff, it is going to give more teams hope, and you're going to have 2 lost teams in the playoff. So, if you get to 2 losses and you go 10-2, you're still going to be in the hunt. So it's going to change things. But right now, if you've got 2 conference losses, you can forget it. You're not going anywhere. And so I got to wonder how many guys have been able to do that. Is Sam going to be able to rally his team around him and around KJ and around Kenny Guyton?
But here's the thing, guys. The defense has been playing great. The defense was very good against Mississippi State. So there's no signs of checking out from them. So I think they're ready to – defense and special teams have played really good enough to win games. It's been the offense. So I think the defense and special teams, I think they're still there. I do not think this team will check out. So I expect, at least we know the defense and special teams will be there. And you got to hope as an Arkansas fan that this move will help reinvigorate the offense. I was very surprised about the Florida-Arkansas line when it came out. A group of us were talking Saturday night late about, what we thought the line would be when it came out. And, some of my buddies, they were thinking 2 touchdowns, 13-14. I said, well, I think it'll be around 10. When it came out at 7.5, I was surprised. And then it goes down immediately to 5.5. So a lot of money came in on Arkansas. So that surprised me right there. And Vegas knows, so they've got more confidence in Arkansas than a lot of people around here do.
Yeah, and I like this. Robert in Memphis, Arkansas needs to keep the DC. Travis Williams, I just remember him. I've met him a few times. Was a defensive assistant under Kevin Steele at Auburn. Went down with Gus at Central Florida. Marcus Woodson, I know from his years at Auburn, prior to that Memphis, and then Florida State. Great recruiter. But what both of those guys are great at is developing players. So you want to, you're right. What is it Gene Stallings said about defense is 3 things: SEC, sight, effort, contact. You're right. There's no lack of effort. The worst thing you can have on your transcript in the military, in business, as an athlete, is an LOM stamp. LOE, lack of effort, or an LOM, lack of motivation. That ain't the problem. Wes, looking at Arkansas, and Franz brought up some points in this team. Sam Pittman, everybody likes Sam Pittman, but you're a professional in the media. Franz is him. You can't. You like somebody individually, but, that's not our decision whether he stays or not. What happens if Arkansas loses the rest of their games, which would be terrible? Do you think, would you guess Sam Pittman keeps his job? And if he does he have to just do a massive overhaul of the staff just to survive?
Yeah, no, massive overhaul. I don't think he would touch the defense or special teams. It would be offensively getting a new offensive coordinator if he survives this. And I would guess the offensive coordinator would get the probably the ability to hire his staff. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about new tight end, wide receiver, running back. But you know what? The running back coach, great recruiter, and they feel like he's got them inside the state of Georgia. And he must think of Kenny Guyton something, because he goes from wide receiver coach to interim offensive coordinator. So I don't know that they would let go of him. And I know for a fact Coach Pittman thinks the world of his offensive line coach.
Yep.
So I don't know what happens. If he keeps his job, though, we know that he'd be going out and trying to find a new offensive coordinator. But to answer your question, if he loses 4 in a row, no, he's not keeping his job. Guys, I'm not sure if 3-1's good enough. It may be bowl or bust for Sam Pittman right now. And that's a little surprising to me. But there are some, let's say, powerful people that are very upset right now. And I'm not sure. I would say the odds are, in my book, with looking at the schedule and what needs to happen, the odds greater that he's not back than they are of him coming back.
What I hear is, and I'm just scuttlebutt, and there's nothing, this is all, most of it's speculation from, I believe, from people. But what I'm hearing is that the gazillionaires, of which there are many, and they pull the strings, of course they do, because they put the money up, they buy the program, are saying that if he gets to 5 wins, he can stay. But if he did anything less than 5, he's gone. That's what I'm hearing anyway.
Yeah, I think you're very close. I do. If he gets 5 wins, I think there's probably about a 75% chance he comes back. But if it's anything less, I don't see it happening.
The shame of it is he's such a good guy, and I think he's a good football coach. But something of what I was pointing to earlier, like we were talking about what happened with Clemson, when you don't replace good with good on your staff, this is what happens. You've got to recruit staff better than you recruit players almost. And the reason Dabo's lost 4 games this year is look at his staff that he had 4 years ago. Look at his staff now. Holy cow. You lose Brent Venables and 2 coordinators on a great offense. And now look at what you got. And it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Wes, you alluded to it in your earlier comments about how you bring in a new coordinator. And I've seen coaches before where they say, okay, I've got to get a new offensive coordinator. And they let his current staff, receiver coach, tight ends, offensive line, running backs coach, interview the guy he's looking at to be offensive coordinator. You got to have a lot of clout to be able to do that. Does Sam Pittman want to take that chance, or does he have that clout left? Wes? Okay. Wes,
yeah,
you there?
Guys broke up. I didn't hear your question.
I was just saying. Yeah. Would Sam Pittman have the clout to be able to say, I'm going to hire an offensive coordinator, but I'm going to let my current staff of offensive coaches interview him? Or does he say, I can't even keep those guys. I've got to bring in the coordinator first and let him bring in his guys?
Yeah, I think a lot depends on the finish and how much heat's on him. He may not have much clout whatsoever. It may be a total overhaul of the offense. And a lot depends on the way they finish out and how the offense looks. If they show that the offensive line starts looking better and blocking better and there's improvement in the offensive line, then all of a sudden maybe people give Cody Kennedy, the offensive line coach, a little bit of a break. That, okay, now we're seeing improvement. He is developing players. It's okay for him to stay. Same thing with the wide receivers. They haven't been exactly setting the world on fire, and the running backs. But if this team improves, then yes, there's a chance that he could be able to just hire a new offensive coordinator and keep everybody else.
You
were saying something about being a nice guy, and this has come up several times down here. Just Mike Anderson was a nice guy. Everybody liked Mike Anderson, and Mike Anderson helped bring this program back from the John Pelfrey years and Stan Heath years that set the program back. But he wasn't able to take them to the next level like Eric Musselman. And so I think that's kind of opening some eyes that, you can get rid of a nice guy that's done a nice job, You just got to find that home run hire that can take the program to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the thing about that we see. You got to get people out of their comfort zone. And Arkansas, I saw this one point somebody made, Kathy in Montgomery. Arkansas needs to recruit the state of Alabama as hard as their own state. 150 D1 kids a year come out of there. It's the 6th most talent-rich state in America. I go back to when Danny Ford was at Arkansas, Wess, and Franz. He was recruiting like crazy in Alabama. There's great high school football down there. There's a little over 5 million people, just under 3 million in Arkansas. But, you've got to have great recruiters. Get them on that campus and close the deal. We just got a few minutes left, Wes. What about Arkansas in recruiting? Are they still doing really well in state? They're going to get 9 or 10 of the top 12 or 11 or 12 of the top 15. That right there, if you're struggling in your own state, that's never a good sign.
Yeah, I think they've got 6 of the top 7 in the state. The only recruit that they've missed on is Walker White. And, Walker was kind of he was a coach's decision early on. Kendall Briles did not think highly of Walker White and his fit in his system. And then, of course, Kendall Briles left, and then Dan Enos came in, and he tried to get Walker and create a relationship with him, but it was too little too late. And so that's the only one of note that they have missed on. I know there's a Pine Bluff wide receiver that's going to Missouri, and he kind of blew up late. And I don't know if Arkansas is going to try to make a run at him late or not, but he's one of those kind of fringe players. Good, really good high school player, but they had chosen to go in a different direction with him. But no, they've got 6 of the top 7 in Arkansas for the 2024 class.
That's a good sign. So, again, Wes, Hog fans are like Gator fans, like Auburn fans, like Mississippi State fans. They're frustrated as hell, but, there's always tomorrow. You go out there and recruit. So I got to ask you this. Who's going to be speaking at the Touchdown Club today in Little Rock, and what are y'all going to be talking about on your show, which starts in about 12 minutes?
Yeah, actually, the Little Rock Touchdown Club meeting is tomorrow. They had to move it for some reason. I'm not sure why, but Chris Doring from the SEC Network will be in town tomorrow to talk a little Razorback football and the SEC football, so that should be a lot of fun. Today, I'll be honest, I bet we spend a lot more time talking Razorback basketball. After the just great performance against Purdue Saturday. I think fans have moved on, and they're ready to talk Razorback basketball. We're 1 week away, 7 days away from the start of the college basketball season, and that game against Purdue was awesome. It was a lot of fun to watch, and Arkansas played really well. And you know what, guys? They got a really good team, and it may be the best team Musselman's had so far. So there's a lot of excitement. We're going to talk with Pat Bradley today, and then also we got Clinton Sterner. Talk a little NFL and SEC football with Clinton Sterner at 10:30. So, it'll be a fun day, exciting day, a lot to get to after a big weekend.
The pride of Baytown, Texas, Clinton Sterner. I love it. I love that place, man. Franz, you got a question?
Well, the thing that I got to say is that, by the way, when you get Chris Doring there, people don't realize he was a walk-on at the University of Florida. He went from walk-on to All-American at the University of Florida. He was a great three-sport star at PK Young, which is a local small school that's actually run by the University of Florida. But he was a terrific basketball player and everything. And you got to admit, one catch turned his entire, turned him into a legend. My goodness, he's still, everywhere he goes, people will scream out, "Doring's got a touchdown." Well, he did, and he had 31 touchdown catches in his college career. Not bad for a walk-on.
He's one. I know, Buddy, and you, Franz, y'all love that guy, but. Man, Wes, we really appreciate you taking time to join us every week from over in Little Rock, ESPN 103.7, The Buzz. And one more question. High school football. Who's going to? How's it looking in the state of Arkansas? You cover all the games.
Man, we got week 10. This is last week coming up Friday night, and we got the big game. It's the one we've all been talking about. Buck James and the Conway Wampus Cats taking on his former team, the Bryant Hornets. They're both undefeated in conference play. This game will decide the conference championship, who gets the number 1 seed, the home playoff games. So we've been talking about the possibility of the week 10 game deciding it all, and sure enough, it is. So it'll be hyped up and huge. But, I mean, you got Hazen and Carlisle playing for the conference title. You got Greenwood and Little Rock Christian Academy playing for the conference title. Malvern and Arkadelphia, they're playing for the conference title. So some great high school games coming up, actually Thursday and Friday night. We got a double dose of games this week because a lot of schools take advantage and play Thursday night, so they get a head start on preparing for the playoffs.
Listen, man, I love how you do it. Fox Sports, Channel 16, anchor Wes Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz. Text us any news on high school football in Arkansas. We'll put it out immediately. Wes, have a great day. Again, thanks for your time.
All right, y'all have a great week. Talk to you next week.
You too. Thank you. All right, friends, that's what I love. And he ain't kidding about the Conway, Arkansas Wampus Cats. That's where my man Tim Horton, his father Harold Horton, played for Frank Broyles at Arkansas, won 3 Southwest Conference championships as a Razorback, and then his son Tim, my friend, played on 2, maybe 3 Southwest Conference championships at Arkansas as a walk-on wide receiver. But where'd you go to high school, Tim? He goes, Conway High School. What was your nickname? He goes, Wampus Cats. You gotta love it, man. I mean, but high school football, and you're right about Chris Doring. Y'all love that guy. Doring's got a touchdown. Doring's got a touchdown. Oh my! That is one of the great calls ever in college football. And now he's got a mortgage business there in Gainesville. He is the All-American guy. He said he grew up loving his Gators. We just got a couple of minutes left, but you love seeing a guy like that succeed, don't you?
Well, he's done a great job as he is post-NFL career. People forget this is a guy that spent 5 or 6 years playing in the NFL as a wide receiver as well. Yeah. You got to have some skills to do that.
Yeah.
But he spent 5 or 6 years in the NFL. So hey, when he's 55 years old, he's going to pick up a nifty pension. And let's face it, Shane Matthews, there's our other one down here.
Yeah.
I think Shane spent 14 years carrying a clipboard. My goodness, he's gonna do it well. The best job in the National Football League is the backup quarterback.
Yeah,
you get a baseball cap. When it snows, you get gloves and a parka.
A seat by the heater.
It's just such a much better gig to be the backup.
It is,
You don't have to go up there. Can you imagine? I was thinking about it the other day. I watched the Ice Bowl. A lot of people may not remember that, but Bart Starr gets the sneak that and scores the touchdown to beat Dallas. And if it hadn't been so cold, Dallas would have killed the Packers because there's no way the Packers could have kept up with Bob Hayes on the outside. And he was. Oh gosh, Bob Hayes. Bob Hayes was just electric too.
Oh, he was. Look, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Unbelievable stuff, Franz. Catch him, folks, Monday through Friday, sometimes even Saturdays. The Buddy Martin Show, GatorBaitMedia.com. True Grit Journalism is on fire on their website every day. Start your mornings off with his daily thoughts and his one final pithy thought. He is Franz Beard, along with Frank Duffy, the 2 most interesting men in the world, both regulars every week on Sidelines. Most often, we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Every day, you have an opportunity to go out and make a difference in people's lives. Kind words, kind deeds, and accountability. That's what we need. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world, folks. The preamble to the Constitution, Franz, you know what it says? We the people, not
That's right.
the government. Don't ever, ever forget that. Folks, we are out of here. Got a great show in store for tomorrow. Until then, see you tomorrow.
Yeah.